This episode of Tell Me Why is a bit personal. It's about the big story of the week. Why 12 Muslim men spent 19 years in jail for a crime that they didn't commit and for which they also spent more than a decade on death row. Actually, there's another important question that I could try to answer as well. I could tell you why we still don't know who really planted those bombs on crowded trains on a July day 19 years ago in 2006, which killed 187 people. The answer to both those questions are interlinked, and over the next few minutes, I'll try to answer how this monumental miscarriage of justice took place. The reason why I say this is personal is because I have reported on this story from day one, from flying there soon after the attack to the various twists and turns, and also authoring a book that featured Wahid Sheikh, the first of the 13 men who was acquitted in 2015. So I followed this case very closely. First, what were those men accused of? On July 13th, there were a series of 7 well-coordinated bomb blasts in the first-class compartments of Mumbai's local trains as they were pulling to key stations. The 7 explosions took place between 6:23 and 6:28 p.m., 6 minutes, thus targeting the rush hour in the city and also injuring 817 people, many of them on the crowded platforms. Mumbai's police and the anti-terror squad arrested 13 men and alleged that they were part of a SIMI and Lashkar plot to shake up India's financial capital. The Students' Islamic Movement of India was first banned in 2001, and the link with it is the root of the dreaded UAPA and Macoca charges. But what the order says is that the prosecutors built up a thin-on evidence case which suggested that the plotters first got together in 1999 when SIMI wasn't yet banned and planned to wage a war against India. The narrative that the prosecutors built was that for 7 years, these men and their handlers went to Pakistan for training, got literature and funding, and then transferred money through Hawala to carry out this elaborate attack. Now, the first sign that this was a dodgy case is its reliance on confessions. Out of the 12 surviving accused, as one of the 13 died during COVID, only one refused to confess. That's the only reason Wahid Sheikh believes he was acquitted in 2015 after 9 years in jail. He said that he was brutalized by the ATS and he names those officers individually. But as a teacher, he refused to take the blame. The others, however, all signed the confessional statement under pressure, and even though all of them retracted the statement in just 2 days or the very next court hearing, the trial court still upheld them. In the appeals court, the defense was able to demonstrate how the confessions couldn't be genuine, because if they were, they wouldn't be identical, which they are. Not just that, they were also able to show how the trial court had refused to acknowledge that these confessions were extracted from the men by inflicting physical harm. The telltale signs of beatings were all recorded on paper. Complaints were sent, and yet they seem to have been ignored. Let me give you an example. Accused number 1, Kamal Ansari, says in his complaint that when he tried to tell the judge about the torture, the police officer, A.N. Rao, said, he has pain in his ear, hit his ear more. Then Sachin Kadam started slapping his ear hard. After that, they called the commander from outside and made him turn his legs 180 degrees. It goes on to say they beat him so much that his kidney started paining and there was blood in urine for 3 days and his hydrocele swelled, and then they took him to KEM hospital on 27 September and got him treated there. This is just one of the accused. There are tales like this from them all, and decorated officers are named as inflicting third degree, but will they face any consequences? As the judges concluded, on all the tests relating to voluntariness and truthfulness of the confessional statements, the prosecution failed. Second point, the witnesses. The prosecution claims that they had witnesses to the accused not just planting explosives on the trains, but they also had one witness who saw the meeting whether conspiracy first took shape. But as the High Court found, they had recorded their statements not in front of a magistrate, which is a more credible way through Section 164, but had simply recorded it in front of police officers, which is called a 161 statement. What is even more suspicious is how much time they took to record statements and conducted the identification parade after 4 months. The court found that the supervising officer wasn't even part of the probe when he conducted the identification. So how did such a shaky identification process really get upheld by the trial court? And especially when you find some of the witnesses' statements completely made up. For instance, the witness who apparently saw the bomb being planted was shown as having identified the accused, but when they looked closely at the time when this alleged identification took place, jail records showed that the accused was actually in jail that time. In this way, other witness statements are also completely shredded by the defense team. The evidence, for instance, the RDX material from one of the accused was neither recovered nor stored in the proper manner prescribed in the Evidence Act. And it seems even the Macoca charges were invoked without even the basic approvals that are needed for this. Everything in the case for which the 12 men spent 19 years was a figment of imagination. For this, they spent time on the death row and much time in a living coffin called the Anda cell. Who is responsible for that? And will the torturers be punished? The justices were cutting as they said that the government officers and lawyers were guilty of creating a false appearance of having solved a case by presenting that the accused have been brought to justice gives a misleading sense of resolution. This deceptive closure undermines public trust and falsely reassures society, while in reality, the true threat remains at large. And that is the real tragedy of this case, that instead of actually finding out who was responsible for the serial train blast or why did the investigation go so wrong, the Maharashtra government is now appealing against this judgment. How much more time will be wasted on this?
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले.
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.